Hello, my name is Joy Ashby Cornthwaite,
And I'm Susan Cosgrove.
and we will be your hosts for this, the 29th episode of the live stream show, MyDiabetesHQ Live. New Year's Day has rolled in with its usual fanfare, and for many, a healthy resolution or two. For those living with diabetes, it may mark a new opportunity to set new goals. Today, our guests will discuss how they personally plan to shift the idea of the New Year resolutions towards SMART goals. They will share how to use these goals as stepping stones towards success instead of absolutes. And they will discuss personal lessons learned and perhaps help you to discover some tips for creating and celebrating your own path. Stay tuned to hear how these diabetes champions plan to continue motivating themselves and others throughout 2021. Today's episode is coming up right now. You don't want to miss this.
Before we begin, a gentle reminder that the content shared during the MyDiabetesHQ Live broadcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you have regarding your medical conditions. Our weekly broadcast is developed and produced by Cities Changing Diabetes volunteers in Houston and in Philadelphia. Our two cities are the U.S. members of a global network of 36 cities and growing, working to improve diabetes prevention, care, and management around the world. You can learn more about Cities Changing Diabetes at citieschangingdiabetes.org. The purpose of this live stream is to help people with diabetes and their support teams, and today we're talking about lived diabetes experiences, goal setting, and motivation. Leave a comment, share where you are, and don't be shy. Join our conversation this morning. So let's welcome our guests, some of our favorite panelists, I think, for all of us this morning. So first we have Ms. Marguerite Butler returning. She's an assistant professor at Thurgood Marshall School of Law at Texas Southern University. Good morning, Ms. Butler.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us again. Next we have Reva Verma, the CEO of Reneka App Builders. Hi, Reva. Oh, you're muted. It's good to have you back.
Hi, good morning.
And then finally, we have Serena Valentine, the CEO of Core Initiatives and Houston Diabetes Peer Support Coordinator. Hi, Serena.
Good morning, everyone.
Good to see everyone. So I will say, we definitely have some of our favorite panelists here this morning with us. Don't tell the others. And we're really excited to hear from all of you, about your lived experiences as we kind of dive into goal setting, motivation, and sort of some of these topics that are very top of mind for a lot of people at this time of year as we kick off a new year. So today, as we talk specifically about goal setting, we'll draw on the skills and knowledge shared in past episodes about self-advocacy, and the champions on our panel are really well practiced in this area, so we can't wait to hear from all of you. So I think with that, I want to start by just defining SMART goals. And so SMART is actually an acronym, and Serena, would love it if you start by walking us through what is a SMART goal? What does that mean?
Okay, well, our goal is SMART. It's an acronym, and it stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So to start off with specific, if you're making a goal or you're setting a goal for yourself for any, time in your life, you want your goal to be as specific as possible. Don't do a blanket goal like I just want to be better. So like, okay, better how? So you have to be specific. It's something specific. For example, it could be I want a better attitude. I'm just using something else besides health just to give a different perspective on it. Also, measurable. All your goals need to be measurable. You do not want to set a goal and you cannot track your progress while you're working on achieving your goal. You want your goal, say you say, for example, I want to drink more water. So you want to measure that and say, okay, more water, like how much? I may drink 1 bottle of water a day. I'd say, okay, let's try next week. I'll try 2 bottles of water a day. Just measure, have a checkpoint for your goals so that you can track your progress and you can feel better about yourself for even setting the goal. You also want your goals to be achievable. You don't want something outlandish that you're not even sure that you can achieve. Like, I can't say I'm going to go from walking 3 miles a day, or I'm going to go from not walking at all to 3 miles a day in a few days or a week. Like, that's not saying that it's not achievable, but it's not something that you can do in a short period of time. And so you have to pace yourself. Also, the R for relevant. You want your goals to be relevant to you. You want your goals, you don't want to set a goal that sounds good for someone else to say, and it's not really something that you need to work towards. For example, with diabetes, everyone has a different A1C goal. So you see someone and they've started off at maybe 7.0 and their goal is 6.0. If you're starting off at 10, 11, or 13, in a certain period of time, that's just not going to happen overnight that you go from that high of A1C down to 6 really quick, okay? Also, time bound. You want to keep your goals in a certain time period. You don't want to have it too long so that you won't procrastinate and get lazy and say, okay, I can use the example of drinking more water. I want to drink more water by the end of the year, but I want to drink at least half my body weight in ounces of water. Okay, so a year is a long time. After a while, you get too relaxed and you get too complacent, and you might not stick to it if you don't give yourself a time period and stick to that and say, okay, the next 3 months I'm going to do this. I'm going to drink at least 60 ounces of water a day, and then for this next time period, I'm going to drink this amount of water per day. You want your goals to be time bound so that you can measure them and measure and track your progress.
That's great. Thank you, Serena. That was a great breakdown of the concept of SMART goals. And I think, all in service of setting yourself up for success, right? With the goals that you set. You want these goals to be things that work for you, that you can actually achieve. And the temptation in January is so often to pick something that's like really big or way pie in the sky. And that kind of doesn't set you up for success as well. So Joy, is there anything else you want to add around goal setting and SMART goals?
Yeah, and one of the things about goal setting and creating, SMART goals may not be the answer for everyone, because there are some, there's a lot of overlay with giving you a freedom to adjust. So behaviors aren't linear. So changing our behaviors and making better decisions are not always linear. They're oftentimes very squiggly. So a lot of people think, us who are type A's, we think we want to get to this point, so we're going to go straight from here to here. But more often than not, you've got this kind of like, I fell back, I went up, I went around, and then I got to the point. And so I think one of the key tenets of SMART goals is to structure a goal, but then also allow for space for making adjustments and for making changes. And so my question to, I think I'll go to Reva with this one, is that, everyone has had and continue upon a completely different journey with diabetes. Oftentimes there's a single goal setting strategy that's used, but it doesn't speak to, self-awareness. What are your thoughts about opening up a space where someone can set their own personal goals, and what does that do to self-awareness and to sort of, self-esteem?
So when it comes to having a space for self-awareness, I think it's important to have a support system that you can go to as far as kind of venting about frustrations and difficulties and challenges, but also celebrating the small successes so that you feel empowered to continue moving forward. So for example, with diabetes specifically, we go, like Serena had mentioned, some people go in with a target A1C goal that they want to achieve. And it's important to realize that if you walk 10 minutes into the woods, you're not going to come out of the woods in 5 minutes. You have to account for that. So in order to do that, you have to give yourself some grace. You have to, have someone that can help you reach those goals with your blood sugar. So if you're starting off with like an 8.0 A1C, you're not going to be at a 6 in 4 weeks. It's just not possible. So, but you can incrementally bring yourself down, and the way to help with that is to wear a Dexcom, wear a continuous glucose monitoring system so that you can see on a daily basis where you are, and slowly, like week by week, watch your average going down. So, I mean, that self-awareness is just having that data right in front of you and being able to share that with someone who can relate and be your cheerleader to, keep going forward, because you will have those setbacks. Diabetes is not a one-size-fits-all type of thing. So, you need different strategies for different goals.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you so much, Reva, for sharing that with us. Those are, that ability to check in and to track is one of those measurable components of the SMART goals, right? And using those to measure, but not giving yourself, not telling yourself these are absolutes. Ms. Butler, you had a similar experience with self-monitoring. Can you tell us a little about your? I'm not even sure what's happening.
Yes, we had a similar experience, but it wasn't as good as Reva's. I was listening to her and I was thinking about my journey. Most of you know my journey has been a long one, and I really haven't had any success until I actually became a part of a group, and I start the group that I started with and started having success with is with going to, what am I trying to say? I went to get my training from my dietitian. That's what I'm trying to say. Joy Cornthwaite, the person who just asked me the question. And I remember the first time I went in to see her. Of course, I wasn't going for the purpose of getting a group hug. I was going because I had to go, because I had another goal in mind, and the goal was to lose weight. It wasn't to control the diabetes, although it helped to the surgery did help to control the diabetes. But I went there with the mindset, with an A1C of 11.4, with the mindset of I'll go in here and I'll sit down and I'll talk to her because I have to, and then I'll leave and I'll go on about my business, because for 30 years, that's what I had done whenever I had seen a dietitian. And so I went in, and one of the things that I've learned through this journey for about 4 years now is that the most important thing that you can have is a support system, which I never had because I was in the business of denying whatever it was diabetes meant. I was denying it, and I really didn't know what it meant, except that I knew you could possibly lose the function of your some bodily functions, and that you could lose a leg or so, but I never computed it toward me. I never thought, okay, yes, I have diabetes, I need to control it. Mm-hmm. And that support system of just somebody giving you, and I call it knowledge, of what's really going on with you. Up until that point, nobody had ever explained to me what it really meant. And I had never, the researcher that I am, I never had made any attempt to research what it meant. I just went based upon what other people had said to me, uh, the anecdotal information that I knew, but it was never anything that caused me to really understand what the process, what diabetes meant in terms of my personal life. So the incident that Joy is referring to is when I went in to talk with her, and I listened to her like I listen to most dietitians, but she drew a picture for me about how diabetics should eat. And she talked about protein and carbohydrates and the vegetables that you needed to push that through your system. And I've never forgotten that diagram. It's like etched in my mind. So I didn't know that I was a visual person, but I now know that diagram made a difference for me. And it was the beginning of knowledge for me. And not only that, when I came back to talk with Joy, which was probably a month later, maybe it was 2 weeks, but I went back to see her, and the first thing she asked me to do was to get on the scale, and I refused to do so. And then she didn't make me. She didn't say anything more. She let me sit at the table, and we talked and talked and talked. And then it was about time to leave, and she said, well, don't you want to get on the scale? I said, no, I don't. But because of her conversation with me, and because I was much more at ease with her, and I understood or felt like she was really concerned about me, I stepped on the scale, and I stepped on the scale, and I had lost 7 pounds. Never, ever in my life had I lost 7 pounds under any circumstance at one time. And it brought me to tears. And so the challenge in, I think, for at least for me with diabetes, was having the support system. That means not just somebody who says, okay, rah, rah, I want you to go forward, but somebody who can help you can share with you the things that are important to get to the goal that you want to get to. My goal was to lose weight. It didn't matter how much weight, just lose weight. And unbeknownst to me, without any really big changes in my life, including I had not begun to take my blood sugar either. I got the supplies every month, but I never took it. But when I found out that what she said worked, I was much more willing to hear something else that she had to say. And so we have to, and I have to speak about me. I had many years of not doing anything anybody said. And in one fell swoop with somebody who I felt really was concerned about me, because I really didn't believe that the other health professionals that I dealt with really were concerned about me. I felt like they were doing the job just so that they could get paid and go home and take care of their families, that it wasn't really about me. And therefore, I didn't trust anything that they had to say. So I guess the short of the story is, you need somebody who really cares about you, or that you perceive cares about you, in order to start making these steps. And it is small steps to begin with, and the small steps absolutely can lead you to Mount Everest.
That's beautiful. I like that. I'm writing that down, right? Small steps can lead you to the top of Mount Everest.
Yeah, because it starts with one step. And if you're never making any steps, which I was not, now I take that back. I was making one step, and that is, I absolutely, every time there was a doctor's appointment, I went. I didn't care. It didn't matter what the result was going to be. I did go to the doctor. But the key was that I wasn't getting the direction and instruction that I needed to move forward. And a lot of times when you are when a person is, well, when I was going through that process, I was not, it was like I was a deer with headlights, or I had like an ostrich with my head in the sand. And I couldn't see success in any shape, way, shape, form, or fashion. So I didn't try to succeed. I just kept my head in the sand. But when you when you find success in some way, small though it may be, it urges you, or it eggs you on to do something more and something different, and those new things help you to be more successful and more confident about what it is that you can do versus not believing that anything can change.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I've heard from the three of you, and one of the things that I've learned from my patients living with diabetes, just as I have, and I think we're hearing it sort of blasted right now, like re-energized right now through the three of your discussions, is that as clinicians, as healthcare providers, we should seek to help people achieve smaller goals, smaller objectives, tiny wins, and then
Yeah.
use those wins to motivate, a bigger win.
Mhm.
And so with everyone that I work with, my goal is not, my end goal. I can see it in my mind. I want you to have um, uh, better labs. I want you to improve your cholesterol levels. I want you to achieve weight loss. I knew you were going to lose weight, Ms. Butler, not because, I'm psychic or anything, but because you were taking steps, right? And I knew that just that tiny change of increasing your vegetable portions was going to reduce your calories. Like, I'm tricky like that. So I knew it was going to happen, but I could not frame it that I wanted you to lose this certain amount of pounds.
No,
Because it never would have
happened.
And so framing, an ultimate goal with tiny goals that kind of bring it all in is something that's really quite amazing.
Yeah, it's really amazing to kind of see and be able to track that progress. And I think the other thing, that I've heard from all of our panelists is when you set those smaller goals, like when you set the reasonable goals for yourself, it also gives you the opportunity to like assess and mobilize your support system, like assess your toolbox, like what are these different things that are going to help you, reach that goal, because it doesn't happen quickly, as we've talked about, and it doesn't happen, I think, without that support, without finding the right support people, without mobilizing your team, without figuring out what tools work for you. And so I think that's where setting these smaller, more reasonable goals also can help you figure out, okay, you can try out different tools, you can try out different like support people and see what works. And Serena, I'd love to toss it back to you to hear from you kind of your perspective on support, family, friend support, peer support, tools, kind of what you do to help achieve your goals.
Yes. So, me, I'm despite popular belief, I'm a very private person. So I like to do a lot to myself by myself. And it kind of goes against even what I do, but it's just me. Like I'm cool with being support for others, but for myself, I kind of like to, get to myself and make a conscious decision without the extra voices around me trying to tell me what they think I should do when I evaluate myself and analyze my own situation just to see what is it that I need to do next. Because, as long as you're alive, you never stop growing. You never stop, you shouldn't have to stop trying to get better. And because diabetes is a chronic illness, you should always be working on something. There's always something to work on. So I just look at the things that are right in front of me first, the things that jump out to me first. When I, like, over the years, I did different segments of things, and some things I did, they did not work, and I had to reroute. That's Joy. That's that squiggly line that we were talking about earlier. Because nothing, that is indeed true. Nothing is a straight line. But I had to start with even the beginning when I started trying to eat right. That line, I can't even say it was squiggly, it was unrecognizable because I was just trying to figure out what was good for me and what wasn't, what's going to raise my blood sugar and what's not, because you have diets out there and you have people saying this works and this works and this works, but all of our bodies are different. So what may work for one person may not work for the next person. And a lot of things did not work for me. So I just had to figure those things out. Exercise, I love exercise because it just it gets me going. It helps my mood and everything. So I had to figure out what was the best way for me to exercise, seeing how, I'm a single mom, so I got other things to do with my son. A lot of my exercise I had to do with him. He doesn't know it, but it was exercise for me. So, just reevaluating everything that's going on around me and what I need to do for myself to keep myself afloat, to keep my diabetes management going in the right direction, whether it's slow or fast, or even pause. As long as I'm not going backwards, that's all I really care about.
Yeah, thanks, Serena. And, I think you kind of came back to something that Joy started with, which was like that amount of self-awareness and like your self-awareness that like if I ask 5 people for support, it's not really going to help me. Like I'm going to feel overwhelmed. And I know that what works for me is to kind of self-motivate. And I feel like that's really important, right? Just coming back to that self-awareness and how you access that. So thank you to our panelists for all of the great sort of input on kind of goal setting and how you achieve your goals. I want to move to talk a little bit about motivation. So understanding and being able to honestly assess your motivation is so important to setting and achieving goals. And I think we've all been in the position where like we know what we should do, but we don't want to do it or we're not able to do it for one reason or another. And motivation can really range on a scale from like, no, I'm not ready, or no, I'm not going to think about this, not interested, to sort of, like this level of curiosity around how do I get started, to I know I can do this. I've totally got this. So I'd like to throw it out to our panel. And Reva, maybe we'll start with you. If you could share stories about kind of how you got motivated or how you stay motivated once you set your goals.
Yes, of course. So currently with the new year, one of my goals that I set for myself was that very consistent in working out, because with COVID, like many people have experienced, I definitely put on some COVID pounds. So my goal for this new year was to shed those. And I knew that it wasn't going to be an easy task because I had gotten out of the rhythm of working out consistently. And also my diet had kind of been like all over the place. So to say I was just going to fix everything in one swoop, I knew was not going to be sustainable, and it was just going to set me up for failure essentially. Because I had kind of started, stop, that whole loop-de-doo that Joy was describing earlier. I'd been on that train for a few months and I knew it just wasn't changing. So like we've been talking about, I had to chunk it up into small goals. And the way that it worked for me was that I needed accountability. So I have done this in a few different ways that I'd like to share. So the first step was setting up my nutrition so that my blood sugar could stay consistent and I wouldn't have spikes and crashes. So I have integrated carbs and protein earlier in the day, and then at night focused on protein and vegetables. So that keeps my blood sugar consistent through the evening, and during the day I feel fueled and ready to work out. The next thing is that one of my really good friends, I'm really grateful to her, she is kind of acting as my nutrition coach. So we'll like measure, I can actually see on a spreadsheet that I've created, because I love data. If I see the numbers, it's going to keep me motivated. It's those small daily goals that I'm setting for myself. So I'm able to keep myself accountable by inputting manually, not just like scanning on an app or something. I'm actually like typing it in every day, the type of carbs I'm eating, the types of protein I'm eating, the types of fat I'm eating. And then I'm also able to correlate that with my blood sugars from my continuous glucose monitor. Then I've also integrated 1 hour of power walking a day. That's just to like reset my mind, give me some time to like process different stress, impacts in my life, focus on resetting my step count, just, trying to get myself moving, but not overexerting myself to where I'll get burnt out. And then I also know that, like, in order to keep a caloric deficit, I actually have to work out hard. So I hate like having to push myself through a strenuous workout. So the only way I'm able to do it is if I just knock it out first thing in the morning. And it's been great. I've been able to stay, consistent with it. But it goes back to I have to figure out what works for me by chunking it out. Then the next thing that I've been able to like really realize about myself is that I can't do the same thing every single day. I get bored, I get burnt out. I'm like, oh, it doesn't matter. I can just do it another day. Or, oh, well, I did it yesterday. I can kind of slack off today. So I've had to mix it up. And so that goes back to different forms of accountability. So 2 times a week, I work out with a trainer. 2 times I work out with my sister, who's become my workout buddy. And then 2 times a week, I'm really trying to like make myself accountable and work out with myself so that I can slowly, be more self-reliant in that area. So it's obviously a process, but I think that since I have different forms of accountability and since I'm mixing it up, hopefully this will be a more sustainable lifestyle change that will ultimately make me healthier and make me feel better about myself. My self-esteem will, continue to improve. And ultimately, it all relates back to being healthier with diabetes. I'm able to keep my blood sugar consistent. I'm watching my nutrition super closely, and it all helps with blood sugars. So that's been my measurable SMART goal. And I know that I've been known to kind of throw out names of different companies and devices that I like to use. But there is an activity tracker out there that has definitely, helped me keep track of all the data points. Because like I said, I love seeing the data. I like seeing my heart rate throughout the day and seeing like how I'm actually spiking a caloric deficit. So if anybody is interested, there's this activity tracker called the WHOOP, WHOOP, and it gives you all these different dashboards. So if you're familiar with like CGM dashboards, it's almost very similar, and it's a great way to help keep yourself very accountable.
That's super. Thank you so much, Reva. I think a lot of times people feel that they're not going to be successful because they've broken up into smaller bits. So by sharing just how you did that and in detail, I think that's super. I think that's really great. We'll pull this up right here.
Yay!
Yeah, thanks, Reva. I was also struck by just how well you know yourself and you kind of know what motivates you and you really kind of stick with those things. And Ms. Butler, I would love to hear from you because every time I hear you say more about your story, I always hear this inflection point where, you kind of went from not being as engaged with your care to then being extremely engaged with your care once you found the right team and the right tools. So tell us a little bit about your motivation journey.
Motivation, I have, or lack thereof. Yes, that there is a turning point. When we go to church, they always ask you, well, when did you become saved? And I've never been able to answer the exact day or time, although a lot of friends of mine can do that. Well, in the context of diabetes, when did I become saved? It was when I started talking to Joy, and I can almost tell you the exact time and date, except I don't know it exactly. But I know that it's at least 4 years ago that I became aware of the fact that I probably could do this. And again, we started with that 7 pounds, the first 7 pounds that I lost. And mind you, the next time I came back, I hadn't lost the 7 pounds. I hadn't gone all the way back, but I had gained some weight. So the motivation of the next thing that she wanted me to do was to take my blood sugars. And then she started talking about how many times a day. And I said, I know I can't do that. So she brought it down to what was a manageable number for me. And I actually did it. So just for 1 month, I was able to do my blood sugars, and I was able to see the fluctuation, and also to determine why the fluctuations occurred, because I was keeping track of what I was eating. I'm exactly the opposite of Rava. I hate keeping statistics. I hate writing things down. If I tell you I detest it, I can't say it even more stronger than that. However, when you get success by doing things like that, the resistance, and I think my resistance was because if I wrote it down before Joy, pre-Joy, it would I would be devastated, if you will. I would be. It would not. It was as though I can't do this. I don't want to see that I can't do this. Let me just sweep it under the rug again. Ostrich head in the sand, deer with headlights. I was a professional at that. And how did I turn the corner? I turned the corner. It was absolutely with Joy. Then the next step of turning the corner was working with Cities Changing Diabetes and being asked to speak. Now that's absolutely important to note that up until that time, I never told anybody that I had diabetes. I never had a discussion with anybody outside of my doctor about my diabetes. If somebody was having a conversation about diabetes, I never joined in the conversation. And I wanted to I was very ashamed of being a diabetic. I guess I have to. So I did not want anybody to know, and I would not engage at all with trying to figure out what can I do differently. So the squiggly line was just a big circle, and I was on that treadmill, and I just kept going around and around and around. And I did not get off until I started with Joy and Cities Changing Diabetes. And the understanding that I received from those two environments was that it was not something to be ashamed of, number one. And number two, it was something that you really could do something about, which up until that point, nobody in the medical profession really helped me to understand how small changes could make big differences. And because I didn't trust anything that they said, so it didn't matter what they said, even though maybe what they said was true, it didn't reach me. And so my journey in the last 4 years, and I'll say my journey since Joy, has been just phenomenal. And it's been phenomenal in the sense that when I went to see Joy, my A1C was in 11.3 or 4. And I didn't know what that meant. I just knew that's what it was. And I went to the doctor last week, and my A1C was a 5.9. And I was just ecstatic. Now, I really don't know what I did to get to that 5.9. But my doctor said, keep doing it. So I came home and tried to figure out what was it that I actually did. And COVID was good for me because what it did was it kept me, because I absolutely fearful about, especially the first few months of COVID. I didn't go out of my house sometimes for 3 and 4 weeks. So what was happening is that I didn't stop by the Burger Kings and the Wendy's to get something to eat. I ate, my eating was all at home. Um, After, I guess about a month ago, my niece asked me if we could go to the pool. I have a gym membership. I've always had a gym membership, never have always used it. But in these last 4 years, I've used it a lot. And I didn't want to go because of COVID-19. I didn't want to even go into the gym. I thought that the virus would jump on me if I walked in there. And but because I knew I needed to go back and exercise, I agreed with her that I would go to the, I didn't want to do any exercise with the machines, but I would go to a water aerobics class. And I kept my mask on during the entire class too. I just didn't take it off. But I knew that I had started to do some exercise. And what I have found is that I just have to have the big goal and then try to do it. I don't set times when I'm going to do it or who I'm going to do it with. I just try to make sure that let's say my big goal is I'm going to try to do it 3 times a week. I'm not going to say what day it's going to be. And I'm not really going to say what the exercise is going to be, except that the only thing I like to do is swim. So usually that's what it is. And what I have learned is that if I get some direction, if I get the direction of where I need to go and just keep my mind on that, the direction. So every time I have to make a choice, well, remember, this is what you want to do. For example, the eating. I'm a big meat eater, or I used to be a big meat eater. But after the surgery, I can't eat meat like I used to because it just boggles down my stomach. My intestines just get stressed. So I eat a lot more vegetables for that reason. And so I didn't make a conscious decision at the beginning of the new year, but I said, when I started thinking about what were the things that I was doing that caused my A1C to go down, I said, well, maybe I'll just start making a meal with vegetables, a lot of vegetables, and just cut up meat in it, like chicken, or the last one I made was with scallops, and eat on that. Make tuna fish and put a lot. Yesterday I made tuna fish and put apples and walnuts in it, and avocado, and eat like that instead of going to the Wendy's, and make sure I do it in advance. Now, hopefully by the time when I start work next week, I'll still have time to sit down and do these things. But for the Christmas break, I was able to do a lot more of the planning and thinking about what it is I was going to eat. And the other thing I realized that I had done during this process of my A1C going down was I ate breakfast. And so my eating, I recognized that I was not eating a lot in between meals because I was eating meals. And I was drinking more water and more liquids than I had been doing before. So it's for me, it has been recognizing that there is a big goal at the end. My goal was not to lower my A1C. My goal was to make sure that I ate right. My goal was to make sure that I did some exercise. My goal was on a regular basis. Because if I get bogged down in, I need to do it today, and then I have 100 things to do today, then I feel like a failure. But if I know that I'm going to do it 3 times a week, then I can figure out sometime during the 7 days that I can do this exercise, and I feel successful. So while I might, if I were a little bit more focused in terms of being diligent, I guess is the word, on these things on a daily basis, I might do a lot better. But I'm happy with the direction I'm going. And when I found out that I had an A1C of 5.9, I lost it, and my endocrinologist told me just keep doing the same thing. So that's what I've been thinking about. What's the same thing? And I'm just going to try to keep doing that.
That is so excellent, Ms. Butler. Thank you so much for sharing that with us today. So I think that you and Reva and Serena are actually closer to, you have more similarities than you think you have differences. Like, even though, you know, Reva's like a data, she wants to see data, she wants to like track it, log it. You and Serena track it, log it in different ways. And I think that's important to let people know, right? So you may not, I have some people that I work with who just take pictures of their food and then adjust it. They never write it down. They never like calculate. They don't weigh anything, but there is a method of tracking. And I think that, you know, it comes back to the tracking slash self awareness slash self motivation slash, I mean, we could just keep going on and on. I feel like I'm doing like a Justin Timberlake, like hashtag goal, hashtag motivation, hashtag like, so, but it's true. You have all of these different ways to get to the same endpoint because you're who you are. And I think it's okay to embrace that. I think it's wonderful and lovely to embrace that because it grows your own, you know, self-esteem, self-motivation, what we like to call in behavioral therapy self-efficacy. It makes you feel that you can do what you're doing and do it well and be successful. And so one of the quotes that I read when Susan and I were putting this together today and thinking about today was that motivation gets you started and habit is what keeps you going. And I think that's powerful because I think each of you have spoken to this today. You know, finding your motivation is about finding who you are and then creating steps to empower yourself and to champion yourself. And in that way, champion others, you know, to let other people know that it's okay. What do y'all think? I know I just took it like from.
I think you're right. I think, and that's what the common denominator is important because different people process things differently. And the most important thing to note, I think, in this process is that everybody doesn't do it the same way. And so.
And it's okay.
Yes, and it's okay. And the challenge that I always had was if you say, well, it wasn't me who was telling them that I was a diabetic, but the conversation would go something like this. Well, this is what they ought to do, and they have no business eating sugar. And did it. And mind you, I know that I ate sugar during this process of going from 11.4 to 5.9. I know that I ate sugar, but I didn't eat it like I had been eating it. It absolutely changed. But the problem is that everybody, I would, before Joe, I would hear people talking and everybody had a different way of handling it. And that's mind-boggling for somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. And so recognizing that everybody has the same goal, but they can do it differently is really monumental. It helps people who want to follow a pattern, but the pattern doesn't have to be everybody's step. It could be the pattern and not the steps. And I can't tell you how grateful I am to have run into you in the manner that I did, and to make the steps and to get to the goals based upon just these major um, stepping stones that you gave me. I feel like I can be in control of what I'm doing, and reach the goal that I need to reach, and not be ashamed in terms of the process of doing it, and not having to meet anybody else's expectations. That to me is liberating, and I'm really glad about it.
Yeah, that's amazing, Ms. Butler. And I feel like from all of our panelists, we've heard just like these wonderful examples of, how you stay motivated and how you kind of stay in it in the long haul. Like, I'm a runner, and I think like the metaphor that lands with me is like, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, right? You have to make sure that you are setting goals and motivating yourself and sustaining yourself in ways that you can do long term, because this is about lifestyle. So Joy, I want to share, or want to kick it over to you to talk a little bit about, how people work with their care teams, and kind of what your thoughts were when preparing for this discussion. I feel like you had a lot of great quotes that you were pulling out of your quote notebook, your quote book.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I do is I really enjoy learning from people that I work with. I think that to live with diabetes, to experience diabetes in the way that everybody experiences in their own way, is a really important component to nuancing like plans for everybody, right? So if all of our training teaches us a certain way, but I lived with people living with diabetes, and I work with people living with diabetes every single day, and every person is their own human, and every person is walking and dancing the dance in their own way. And I think we can all learn from one another and overlay things on top. And so, you know, one of the themes that is ongoing in conversations, especially with those, and we have promised, and we're coming, soon, everybody, with a mental health and wellness awareness session as well. But one of the biggest components of sort of improving someone's mental health and wellness is to use these types of smart, small goals to reach a larger goal. And then also to share that perfection is not where we're going. Okay. And I think it's very hard in our society. There's a lot of us who have a lot of training, a lot of schooling, parents who have motivated and pushed us always to be the best. And so for those of us who in our minds think, I have to get it right every single time it has to be perfect, that does not help someone who is living with a chronic disease and illness that's going to impact every facet of their life. You can't make decisions to eat with your friends without thinking about diabetes and your medication and how that's going to influence you. Am I going to be high? Am I going to be low? Can you imagine the implications of forced perfection in those situations? It's not good. So one of the things that came up in a conversation I had with Ms. Butler, and I keep a little notebook with things that people who I work with, people who I'm in awe of, like Reva, Serena, Ms. Butler. I keep little notes on things. And I was looking through the notes from Ms. Butler, and I saw that she had told me, and here, I'll pull it up, that perfection has never been her goal. Imperfection is expected and acceptable. And I wrote that down. I know, Ms. Butler, it's weird. You're talking to me, I'm taking little notes on amazing things you say. But as I was looking at that, and I flipped through some other pages, I found I had been for a lecture by Bonnie St. John, who is the first African-American Winter Olympics winner. She has 3 medals in the Winter Olympics, I believe 1986. And she was in the Paralympics. And she has had a prosthetic leg since she was about, I believe, 5 years old. And I wrote down what she said, in amongst all the wonderful things that she said. And she's a world leader now. She speaks all over the world. And she also said, perfection does not allow for growth. And I'm like, in those moments, I had Miss Butler, a presidential medal winner. I had thoughts of Reva, thoughts of Serena, thoughts of how they help empower others. And I think that a running theme is imperfection is okay. What are your thoughts?
So I think that when you accept imperfection as perfection, then you're allowing yourself the opportunity to actually succeed. And the reason for this is because you're taking away the stress and pressures and expectations of being perfect. So you're gaining the ability to focus 100% on your goals and break those goals up into smaller chunks without, listening to all the little voices and all the other outside influences telling you that you have to do things a certain way. So it's like Miss Butler said, the imperfect is acceptable, and, in a way, that's perfection. So at the end of the day, you have to accept that this is your life, these are your limitations, and you're not going to get everything right the first time. It's going to take trial and error, and it's going to take a lot of support to achieve those goals. So to have the expectation of perfection is fine, but you need to accept that that definition of perfection is actually imperfection.
I wrote that down, Reva. You're in my book with Bonnie John. Serena?
Yeah, I was going to say very quickly, I know I've always been, ever since I was younger, a perfectionist, so to speak, where I would be like, everything had to be perfect. And if it wasn't, I would get all bent out of shape. Ironically enough, with my diabetes management, it wasn't imperfection that motivated me. It was, I don't want to die. Because, and I see so often, even in peer support, that the motivation is a complication or a few complications. That's exactly what happened to me. 2017, I had a list of 11, count it, y'all, 11 diagnoses that stemmed from diabetes. And my body was just out of there. I was so ill, I could not get out of bed. That was my motivation every day, seeing my son walk in my room in his own way, telling me good morning. And I'm like, I don't want to die. And I hear that so often in peer support. It's like, it would be nice to be motivated before your body gets to the point of experiencing a diabetes complication, but it doesn't always happen that way. And I hear a lot of them like, oh, well, now I need to do something because now I'm feeling bad. So that was the ironic thing for me. It wasn't about being perfect, which I kind of am a perfectionist, but it was, I don't want to die. So, and I know, I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but that's just real and honest, so that being imperfect is a story of my life. No matter how much I wanted to be perfect, it wouldn't happen. And all of this has came about because I'm not imperfect, because I'm not perfect. So yeah.
I think that comment is wrong. It says that I realized I did want to die. It should be I did not want to die. Serena did not want to die.
No, she did not. We'll correct that. So I think, Susan, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think I definitely want to hear Ms. Butler weigh in on imperfection, since you have that great quote from her. So what do you have to share with us? What other wisdom can you impart on us this morning?
Oh, well, I just know, I know that I am not perfect. I knew that I was not perfect. That was never the goal in my entire life. I often go back to the fact that the thing that sort of set my mindset um, or readjusted my mindset was when my mother passed. My mother died when I was 14. And I really felt, actually, I think that's when I felt the most alone. And I don't think I got much better than I had 5 friends in my through high school, 5 close friends. And 2 or 3 of them I still talk to. One of them has passed. And so I've always felt pretty isolated in terms of friendship. I've had friends in college, but I didn't sort of stay in touch with them. I had friends in law school. I probably am still in touch with one. And it's not that friends are discardable, but I've never wanted to get so close to somebody that it would devastate me like my mother's death. I think that's what I've come to learn about myself. And so, what I learned early on when I was 14 is that life is not perfect, and you don't get to choose some things that you would prefer to choose. And so perfection for me is to try to do the best you can do at the moment that you have to do it. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to reach, as my mother used to tell me, you can aim for the stars. You can aim for the moon, but you might land in the stars, but just aim high. And so the goal for me is to just aim high, just try to do something that's better than what you were doing. And at that moment, that's perfection for whatever it is that you're doing. And so with this diabetes, while I never, those analogies never came to me as I was struggling all those 30 years, I can reach for them now because of the support that I have. And so now I make an effort to maintain relationship with people, even though I'm still not as good at as I think I ought to be. But again, that's my growth. And when you're surrounded by people like Klaus and Joy, who they won't let you go, and then I'm saying, well, who are these people, and how did they come in my life? And now I feel much more comfortable having developed those relationships that I can go out and have a better support system. Not only that, I can tell people things that I would never have had conversations with. So it's getting to perfection is not trying to gain perfection is not what that outlying I need 100% on the exam kind of perfection, but it is rather that you are making movement toward the moon or the stars, even though you may end up landing on top of the trees. I am a firm believer that being flexible is very important to being aiming for the stars. And if you can do that on a regular basis, you're not going to be in the gutter. You'll be a lot further ahead on the job or the goal that you're trying to achieve. And that's good. And that's good. That to me is imperfection becoming perfection, and knowing that you can go to the next level and do better too.
That's great. I feel like that's kind of the perfect note to head into a new year on, right? Is kind of that accepting imperfection, practicing self-compassion, and aiming high, and then landing where you will. Joy, what other reflections do you have on our conversation today?
Well, I did want to maybe just put a list for those who need to see it, who are visual. for 8 steps to continuing motivation, and in no particular order, without any one being more important than the other, just things that our panel has spoken to today. So we want to remember to start simple, okay? Start small. Keep good company, accountability. Reva even said that keeping good company sometimes with yourself to reaffirm your own personal motivation is important. So she has accountability partners for working out, but she also has herself, which is powerful. Keep learning. I think Ms. Butler has said this. Your knowledge and education to build your skills to stay motivated are very, very important. See the good even in things that are not necessarily perfect, right? So use your information, use your data to head towards your goal. Stop thinking and just do it. So I think Serena spoke to that. And sometimes it's just, you have to do it. These are things you have to do to protect yourself, to be here, to provide for in her case, her son. Know yourself and be honest with yourself. Track your progress in whichever way that means for yourself. And then also help others. Because we know that by helping others, we actually are able to learn during those moments while we're helping. So you can't be a good teacher if you yourself are not learning in the process. And so I think that, Serena, Ms. Butler, and Reva are champions and advocates for other people living with diabetes. And in so doing, so, they also grow their personal skills. Am I wrong, ladies?
You're absolutely right.
Very right.
So Susan, I'll let you take over.
Great. Well, again, thank you to all of our wonderful panelists for joining us today, for sharing kind of how you set your goals and really just the lifetime of experiences I feel like that each of you has with goal setting, with, again, self-compassion, motivation, rethinking, imperfection, and kind of sharing with us the way that you have achieved success as you've navigated kind of each of your personal journeys with managing your diabetes. So with that, I think that we are going to close today. Thank you all again for being here to share. Joy, any final thoughts from you?
No, I am so appreciative of the time that you ladies have taken this morning to share, and also for our audience and our viewers who have liked the show, subscribed to the show, and continue to come back and let us know that these are topics that you're interested in. So thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you. And remember that recommendations for care are personal. We're grateful to Serena, Reva, and Ms. Butler for sharing their experience and advice this morning. And we just urge all of our viewers to always communicate your challenges and seek the advice of your physician and your care team with any questions you have regarding your personal condition, including your diabetes. So yeah, it's been a great start to a Saturday morning with yet another great panel. To our viewers, we hope that this conversation has encouraged you to think about your goals in a different way and set yourself up for success. Mark your calendars because we'll be broadcasting every Saturday, 10 a.m. Central Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and you can join us next weekend for our next show. Thank you, everyone, and thank you so much for being part of the MyDiabetesHQ community. We'll see you next week.